All right, my dear friends, settle down, grab a drink, let's have a real talk tonight, not some boring financial seminar stuff, because tonight we're diving deep into something that has probably been keeping you up at night. Retirement planning, that big, scary monster under the bed. Many of you, many of you, have probably heard this line, "What are my chances of success, Aaron?" And then some financial guru, looking all serious and important, tells you, "You, my friend, have an 80 or 90% probability of success." Sounds comforting, doesn't it? Almost like a warm blanket on a cold night. It sounds precise. It sounds like you've got this whole adulting thing figured out. A solid answer in a life that often feels like a chaotic roller coaster. But, and there is always a but with me. Here's the kicker. Here's the problem with that shiny happy number. That percentage, that seemingly perfect prediction, it doesn't tell you squat, absolutely nothing, about what retirement will actually feel like. I'm talking about the day-to-day, the nitty-gritty, the am I actually happy kind of feel. And here's the part that almost no one, and I mean almost no one in those fancy finance offices will ever tell you straight up. You can have a 90% success rate on paper, a perfect score, and still spend the next 20 years of your so-called golden age being utterly miserably stressed about money. Yeah, you heard me right, stressed. Like you're still in your 20s hustling and grinding. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite 25-year-old financial wizard, Aaron, back at you, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're tearing down that facade, ripping apart the illusion of that 90%, or whatever probability of success figure they throw at you, because behind that number, behind that glossy brochure, there are other far more crucial questions you absolutely need to have answered. If you want to avoid a retirement full of regret and instant noodles, first off, what does your actual income look like over time? Not just the starting point, but the winding road, the ups and downs, the unexpected detours. How often would you need to cut spending? And let's be real, how painful would those cuts be? Are we talking about skipping a fancy coffee or giving up on that dream vacation you've been planning for decades? And most importantly, what kind of life are you actually living along the way? Are you traveling freely, spontaneously booking flights to exotic places? Or are you hesitating, agonizing over every single penny every time you even think about booking a flight? Are you genuinely enjoying your hard-earned money, or are you just striving to protect it, hoarding it like a dragon protecting its gold? This, my friends, is where we've seen retirement research, the really smart, cutting-edge stuff, shift dramatically in the past few years. It's no longer just about, will my plan survive? Will I not run out of money? Nope, we're evolving. We're starting to focus on a much deeper, more human idea. What will the lived experience be along the way? What will it feel like to actually live that retirement? Not just survive it. Before we dive deeper into this rabbit hole, I want to make sure we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. Because while the term probability of success gets tossed around like a hot potato, it's rarely truly explained clearly. So when you hear that phrase like, you have a 90% probability of success, here's what that actually truly means. It means your carefully crafted financial plan has been fed into a super-duper computer, run through thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of simulations. These simulations throw everything at it, different market returns, wild fluctuations, unexpected sequences of events, various economic environments, you name it. And in 90% of those hypothetical computer-generated scenarios, you, my friend, did not, I repeat, did not run out of money. That's it. That's the big secret. That's what success means in this context. It simply means your bank account didn't hit zero. You didn't end up begging for spare change under a bridge. Now in the industry, among the suits and ties, there are some general unspoken guidelines around 90% or higher. That's considered very safe, practically bulletproof. Around 80 to 90%. That's where many advisors, the typical ones, aim for. It's their sweet spot, around 70 to 80%. That's often still considered acceptable. Good enough. So naturally, most financial plans are meticulously crafted to land somewhere around 85 to 90% as a probability of success. Why, you ask? Because it sounds responsible, it sounds conservative, it sounds like you're doing all the right things, being a good, prudent financial citizen. But here's the thing, and this is where I usually get a few angry emails. A higher probability of success does not, I repeat, does not guarantee greater safety in all forms. In fact, it very well could mean you're spending less, way less, than you truly could, than you deserve to. You're building a massive margin for the absolute worst. Case asteroid-hitting Earth scenarios, and in doing so you may be sacrificing a vibrant, fulfilling lifestyle today for a protection you may never actually truly need. It is like buying a tank to go grocery shopping overkill. So, we, the enlightened ones, need to ask a much more profound question. What am I giving up for that level of certainty, for that seemingly perfect 90%? Because the trade-offs, my friends, that's where everything, absolutely everything, in retirement planning truly lives. It is the silent killer of joy, the unseen cost, The traditional model, the one that's been drilled into our heads for decades, treats retirement like a simple pass-fail test, a black and white world. You either run out of money, which they label a failure, or you don't run out of money, which they proudly declare success. Clean, simple, easy to understand, and completely, utterly disconnected from the messy, beautiful, unpredictable reality of human life. It is a spreadsheet fantasy, not a real-life blueprint, according to David Blanchett, a brilliant mind in this field. This pass-fail mentality is one of the biggest flaws, a gaping hole, in modern retirement planning, because not all failures are created equal. Running out of money by $1 at the ripe old age of 95, that's not the same thing, not even close, as running out of money by $500,000 at the tender age of 70. These are completely different galaxies of financial pain. One is simply a rounding error, a minor blip at the very end of a long journey. The other is a life-altering financial shock, a torpedo to your golden years. But the archaic model, it treats them identically, like they're twins. It also conveniently ignores when that shortfall happens. The timing. It ignores how big the shortfall actually is, the magnitude, and most importantly, it ignores how the retiree would actually need to adjust to avoid that shortfall. Do you have to cut a luxury vacation, something you always dreamed of, or do you have to cut essential health care, the very thing keeping you alive and well? Those, my friends, are not, I repeat, are not the same thing. One is an inconvenience, the other is a tragedy. So David Blanchett, being the smart cookie he is, reframed the entire question. He asked how much of the retirement goal was actually achieved, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of experiences. That, my friends, is looking at retirement through a completely different, much more human lens. Now, we're not just measuring mere survival, like some desperate contestant on a reality show. Now, we're looking at lifestyle, at the quality of life, at the joy and fulfillment. Now, this monumental shift in perspective, this enlightenment in retirement planning, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a sudden epiphany. It evolved, slowly, surely. Early retirement research, bless its heart, gave us simple, albeit rigid rules, like the famous 4% rule. You know, the one you have a fixed withdrawal that gets adjusted for inflation every year. This is clean, it is simple, it is elegant, it's incredibly helpful as a starting point. But, and there's that big, but again, it's also deeply, fundamentally flawed, because in real life, retirees, and just people in general, do not spend like emotionless robots. They don't wake up every single January 1st and robotically declare, "Let me increase my spending by the exact amount of inflation." No more, no less. Real people, flesh and blood people, they spend more when they feel good, when the economy is booming, when their health is great. They pull back when they feel uncertain, when the market is tanking, when unforeseen expenses pop up. They adjust their spending based on the market, their health, their family life, the real stuff. And then, this is where the groundbreaking research by Guyton and Klinger comes into play. Because this introduced the revolutionary concept of dynamic spending. Rather than stubbornly spending the same exact amount every single year, like a broken record, retirees, the smart ones, freeze spending in bad markets. They cut spending when needed. They increase spending when things go well. When the sun is shining for the very first time, research started asking the right question: what does retirement spending actually look like over time? In the real world, not just does the portfolio survive the apocalypse, but even that, even dynamic spending, had its limitations. Because now we introduce new, uncomfortable questions. It wasn't just that spending could be adjustable, but how would those adjustments feel? Emotionally, psychologically, making a 5% adjustment to your spending, that could absolutely feel manageable, like a minor tweak. But what if that had to be a 25 or a 30% adjustment, a gut-wrenching cut? Maybe that doesn't feel manageable at all. Maybe that feels too life-altering, too soul-crushing, to truly enjoy your retirement. This, my friends, is where Michael Kitz's, another absolute legend in the financial planning world, really pushes the conversation forward. He takes that abstract probability of success, that fuzzy percentage, and translates it into something far more tangible, far more relatable: guardrails. Instead of just saying something vague, like, you have an 85% probability of success, he says, if the market performs poorly, you will have to adjust your spending downward by, let's say, 10%. Now that's a completely different conversation, isn't it? This is something we can truly feel, truly understand, truly internalize. I don't know about you, but when I hear something like an 85% success rate, it sounds good. It sounds comforting, but I don't really have a concrete definition of what that actually means for my daily life, my actual experiences. But if someone who knows their stuff, turns to me and says, "Hey Aaron, if the market goes down, I need you to reduce your spending by 10%. Well, now that's something that I can very clearly understand. I can picture it, I can prepare for it, I can make a plan. Now, a retiree, a real person with real feelings, can ask themselves, can I live with that? Can I make that adjustment? Would I be okay if that actually had to happen? That, my friends, is the real question, the truly empowering question. And in more recent research, Kitz's, bless his innovative heart, goes even further. He reframes retirement risk not just as running out of money, but as two distinct, yet interconnected risks: overspending risk and underspending risk. That is subtle, almost whispered, but incredibly profoundly important. Because a high probability of success doesn't just mean safety from financial ruin, it often means you're probably spending too little, you're unnecessarily sacrificing lifestyle, you're protecting a future version of yourself, a hypothetical version, at the expense of your current, living, breathing, deserving self. That, my friends, is the hidden cost, the silent thief of joy, that no one, absolutely no one, talks about enough. So now, armed with this new wisdom, we have a better, more holistic goal to optimize the experience of retirement, to make it not just survivable but truly enjoyable. And recently, I had the distinct honor and privilege of talking with Michael Kitces himself right here on this channel. And one of the most profound things I heard him say when we were talking about probabilities of success was this. Let's say your plan has an 80% probability of success. Well, then perhaps that just means there's a 20% probability that you will need to adjust your spending. See the shift, see the reframing. It's not a failure, it's an adjustment, a dynamic response to reality. This is also where Blanchette's work becomes incredibly powerful, truly game changing. He brought forward 3 key revolutionary ideas that fundamentally reshape, redefine retirement planning for the better. Number 1, spending is not flat. Most outdated models, stuck in the past, assume spending stays the exact same, simply adjusted for inflation year after year, like a perfect flat line. But in reality, in the messy, beautiful reality of human life, that's not what we see at all. Most retirees tend to spend more early on in retirement when they're active, full of energy, ready to explore, and then they naturally, organically spend less later on in retirement. As priorities shift, as energy wanes, as healthcare needs rise, your first 10 years of retirement might be filled with exhilarating travel, unforgettable experiences, and an active, vibrant lifestyle. Your later years, maybe it's more time at home, higher healthcare costs, and less discretionary spending. So if your model assumes perfectly flat spending, it's not modeling real life, it's modeling a spreadsheet, a fantasy. Number 2, retirement is not a pass or fail. It's a spectrum, a beautiful, nuanced rainbow of possibilities. Instead of asking, did you run out of money, yes or no, Blanchette asks, how much of your desired lifestyle did you actually fund? You might find you funded 95% of your lifestyle, and that, my friends, is perfectly acceptable, even glorious. Or in a worst-case scenario, maybe you only funded 85% of your desired lifestyle. But perhaps, just perhaps, that's still perfectly acceptable. Even great to you. This is technically a fail when we look at the old rigid model, but it still could be a fantastic, fulfilling retirement for you. This introduces much-needed nuance, because now we're measuring degrees of success, shades of gray, and not simply bare survival. And number 3, not all spending cuts are equal. This is where we get truly human, truly empathetic. Because cutting travel, cutting dining out at fancy restaurants, cutting luxury spending, that is not the same, not even in the same universe, as cutting housing, cutting essential healthcare, or cutting basic needs like food. This is rooted in something called utility, where we're really looking at how much cutting an expense truly affects your well-being, your happiness, your quality of life. Because having to cut a $5,000 vacation, that's annoying, that's a bummer. But having to cut life, saving medication, that's not just financial, that is life-altering, devastating. And this is where we start to see that it connects to deeper, profound academic research.